Hello, my name is Chrissy Hodges. I'm a mental health advocate, particularly for OCD. I'm a certified peer support specialist here in Colorado, and I work with individuals worldwide providing support, but also providing referrals and resources for OCD experts and anything that can help with OCD. And I'm also the author. I don't have a book here, but I can just tell you I'm the author of Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. Today I wanted to talk about scrupulosity and religious themes when it comes to OCD. I've already done a video on this before, but I've been contemplating this for a long time. I get so many, hi Rudy! I get so many people that are struggling so badly that reach out to me with scrupulosity. And I did that video a long time ago, and there's so many things that I definitely wanted to say that hit a little bit closer to home when it comes to this. I personally have lived with scrupulosity for 12 years before I was diagnosed. It was absolute torment and torture. While I had sexual intrusive thoughts and other things, it was the scrupulosity that held it all together in fear. And that was what was so terrifying for me. Every type or theme of OCD is horrible to live with. When it comes to scrupulosity and religious themes, there is just some added layer of shame and guilt when it is attacking that part of you that is your core of what you believe you are as a person. We look at our beliefs as things that get passed down through our families or things that we learn and grow as individuals. And when OCD comes in and attacks that, it turns what a solid foundation may once had been to all of a sudden shaky ground, and you don't know where to grasp. With that comes a huge urgency to need to solve the problem. Now with OCD, you're always going to have this urgency. You're always going to have this, I need to get certainty about this issue. There seems to be, I always say with scrupulosity, it's almost like you're caught in a big like bubble of bees and they're stinging you everywhere. And the urgency is, I've got to get out of this right now. I've got to figure this out right now, because you're not just looking at what I need to do in the moment. You're looking at sometimes the core beliefs that can predict eternal damnation. You know, in your mind, that's what you're thinking. If I don't figure this out, what does that mean for the afterlife? What does that mean with my relationship with the divine, a divine that I have devoted my life to? That urgency can be so tormenting, like you are getting stung by thousands of bees at once and you're just in desperate need of relief. The prospect of finding relief also becomes all-consuming, because especially when scrupulosity is revolving around some sort of bad thoughts, fear that you're letting down a god or whatever you worship, all of a sudden you feel the need that if you don't atone or if you don't figure this out, that you are actually receiving judgment. You may start to look for proof that you're doing something wrong, and oh my gosh, that must mean that God is judging me or that I have let this God down. So this also, it comes with that all-consuming need and fear of, if I don't solve this problem, then there's going to be something horrific that I can't control in the afterlife or when I die, or as a result, my life is going to be horrendous because I'm not living the kind of life that is aligned with my ethical and moral values. When these things are called into question when it comes to religious or scrupulosity, all of a sudden you feel like it's attacking who you are as a person. Now, I know anything can feel this way, so I'm not putting one over the other, but I am saying that with scrupulosity, it feels so personal because it is rattling the core that you're hoping that you have been able to cling to in your life, that's supposed to be loving, accepting, forgiving, and allows you to be who you are without judgment. OCD flips that on its head. It all of a sudden puts you in a position where everything feels like judgment, where you are being judged by what you're worshiped, which is terrifying because that's the last thing that you want to do. It makes you feel like you don't have reason to be forgiven or accepted, or whatever terms are appropriate there. It really does. It's like undoing the foundation of your core, like one string at a time. And it is terrifying on how to know to put that back together. As we know, OCD consists of a horrific cycle, which is you get the intrusive thought or the obsession, which in this case would be something popping into your head of a religious nature, and it's accompanied by anxiety or panic or bad feelings of that nature. And then the next thing that you do is, I've got to find relief from this. I've got to find relief from this. And yes, if it is attacking something that you have been devoted to your whole life, that you feel like is a reflection of who you are, the urgency is that much stronger. And so you will do the compulsion because you feel the need to have to maintain that moral obligation, the belief system that you've dedicated your life to. And the shame not only comes for yourself, but it also comes of how am I going to let the people down in my family? If you have shared beliefs, how am I going to let people down in my community? If you are part of a religious community, or even if you're just part of a spiritual community and OCD is attacking that, it makes you doubt whether or not you are someone that's worthy of being in that community. And so with the cycle, you are engaging in something that feels so real, and you don't understand that it's a mental illness at times. I mean, you can understand that, but what I'm saying is in the moment, it is hard to accept that. At least it is for me when I'm experiencing OCD. And so often when people are met with the prospect that this is OCD, they think it can't be. It cannot be because this feels real, and I'm not willing to gamble eternity on the fact that it may or may not be OCD. And that gets in the way, and that is very scary. And I'm being frank here, it is okay to feel that way. It's okay to be scared. That if you label what these feelings are, it's okay to feel scared that you're gambling with your future. However, at some point, and I'm going to share some of my lived experience here in a second. However, at some point, it will become necessary to address this with a professional, because as most of us know, our religious beliefs, our spiritual beliefs, the core of who we are, these are things that we want to nurture. They develop the value of the values that we have and that we carry with us and that we are hoping are reflecting to the world around us. When that comes convoluted with OCD, when it turns into all this is anxiety and I am miserable all day, I cannot live up to this, and that spirals down into a depression, that is when we have to at some point face that music and say, this may not be how I want religion to serve me. And the reason why is perhaps it has been overshadowed and it has been completely hijacked by a mental illness. I'm hopeful by listening to this that you were able to see that maybe that's what's going on, and that it's okay to be scared, but it's also okay to take that next step with a professional to figure that out. For me, the shame and the guilt, oh God, with scrupulosity was the worst. It was the driving force in everything that scrupulosity was in my life. I had sexual intrusive thoughts, and I had the fear of vomiting, and I had a lot of other violent sexual intrusive thoughts. But the core of it, I like to say the thread that was woven between all of it was there's a reason why you're having these thoughts, and that is because you've done something wrong to offend God. I was super religious back then. That's the only worldview that I knew. And so I didn't know how to believe anything else. I certainly did not believe in mental illness back then. I do now. Hello. But back then I did not. And I thought that that was the farthest thing from me. And so I only knew to say, if I was just a better person, perhaps these horrible thoughts will go away. Now, in hindsight, of course, I can look back and say that where religion for me should have been something that was nurturing, that gave me hope, that was, made me look at myself as someone that could be forgiven and accepted and a positive force in my life, I developed a very unhealthy relationship with religion because of OCD. That is another thing that I'm hoping, if you're watching this and you are thinking, maybe I do have this and maybe I don't, is seeing that, is there another factor coming into what you're experiencing to make what religion is and should be, or perhaps at one point was, is it making it unhealthy for you? And what does unhealthy look like? It's tormenting you. It's torturing you. It's causing you to have to do compulsions day in and day out, even when they don't feel like compulsions, they feel like the right thing to do. An unhealthy relationship is spending an excessive amount of time doing something to feel relief out of the terror and fear that if you don't do it, something horrible is going to happen. That absolutely could be unhealthy. And that is what a professional can help untangle all of that and get you to a place where you don't have to suffer. For me, I lived in anguish with scrupulosity every single day, feeling like it was perfectionism for me. I had to be the best possible religious person. I had to do everything right. And I'm not saying that I'm a bad person. I mean, I have been a bad person at times, but I would scrutinize everything that I did and say, was that bad? Was I wrong? Was I horrible? Was it that? And then I would have to cancel out something I thought was horrible with doing an act of good, which I don't even know if I was doing it authentically. It was just, I was a slave to scrupulosity. I had to do what I had to do in order not to suffer. And so it was just anguish every moment of every day, making sure I had this perfectionistic quality, that I wasn't letting down the God that I believed in at that time. It was torture. And it wasn't, if I look back, it wasn't what I would hope a loving relationship would be between a God that you're worshiping and somebody who that's how they were brought up and that's what they wanted in their life. I made deals with God to try to prove whether or not I was a good or bad person. As silly as it sounds, God, give me a sign today. Give me a sign that I've been a good person. Give me a sign that I am bad, or give me a sign that I need to ask forgiveness. And I was constantly on the lookout of trying to find out whether or not, I was bad because God was punishing me because this sign told me this and this side told me that. Again, these signs, not the signs I was asking for, but these things show that something is unhealthy and it's off. Interjecting really quick, but not staying on the topic. A lot of times people go, well, I'm obsessive about this, I'm compulsive. The disorder piece in the OCD, the disorder piece, that's what makes it OCD. The disruption of everyday life. The onset of this torment every single day. You're devoting so much time and energy, and I was with scrupulosity. I was devoting so much more time and energy to making sure that I was, the perfect person for a God than actually engaging in the devotion that it takes to be religious. That's when it becomes a disorder. That's when the shame and the guilt is so prevalent, and that becomes the core versus what you want a religious experience to be. That was my lived experience with it. And it was so much deeper than that. I would just rather get to some of the other things that I think may be helpful if you're struggling with this. I'm just going to quickly just go through some of the symptoms of this. And trust me, this isn't all of them. I'm just kind of giving a general overview. So there could be many, many more, but just to give you a general idea. Some of the obsessions that come around with religious themes and scrupulosity are going to be fears of offending God, which I just talked about was part of mine. Fear of God punishing them, that was also very prevalent in my experience. If I had other obsessive thoughts, I thought I'd done something wrong and God was punishing me, so I would need to repent. Here we go in that reel of a cycle. Fears of going to hell or eternal damnation, depending on what your religious views are. Fear of that eternity that you're doing everything that you can in your lifetime to avoid. Fears that your actions will condemn others. If you don't do this, then maybe my mom will go to hell, or my mom is going to experience the wrath of God, or my partner, or things of that nature. Fears of acting against moral and ethical standards. This is prevalent too. It kind of deviates a little bit away from the religious aspect, but fearing that if you are aligned in your beliefs of, I want to be a good person, or I want to do X, Y, and Z for people, and you don't do it, then all of a sudden the fears of, I am a bad person, I am immoral, and needing to, feel the need to do, compensate for that, or do thought replacement or things like that. So it can also be just living to a moral and ethical standard. Sexual thoughts of godly figures could be that. Images of satanic, like seeing like 666 or things of that nature, and seeing these things or visualizing them, and all of a sudden, what does that mean? I just sold my soul to the devil, things like that. So all of these things encompass you going against what it is that in the tenets that you believe about your religious views. And that causes anxiety, which perpetuates the cycle. Some compulsions that people might do, which I know it's so difficult to recognize the compulsions because it feels so real, and you really are just surviving this and doing anything that you can just to make sure that those obsessions aren't true, to get that certainty that, oh my gosh, no, the worst thing possible isn't going to happen. So what you do is you perform compulsions to pull down the anxiety. So, and this was very relevant for me, excessive and repeated prayers. So I would do the same prayer over and over every night. If I made one mistake, I would have to start over. Confession, excessive confession, and that actually might be to a priest or a religious person, or it might just be to the individuals around you. Reading scripture or religious literature over and over and over. That could be a compulsion as well, or reading something and feeling the need to uphold the standards of what it's saying. Obviously, asking for reassurance, which a lot of us do when it comes to OCD. Mental review of intentions and actions. So, and oh my gosh, I did this so much, especially when I would be in the thick of really horrible intrusive thoughts. I would review everything I had done over the last week, 2, 3 weeks. Oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? What do I need to ask forgiveness for? And even when I would find something, and I often say this, I stepped on an ant the other day. And I feel like I have to ask forgiveness because what if I intentionally did it? And then I would try to think back and be like, did I see the ant before I did it? Did I want to step on the ant? Because ants, I sat in an ant bed when I was a young kid and I got bit a ton. So now do I have it out for the ants? Do I have, revenge for them? And then now I'm going to be an internal damnation because I did really want. So I'm going to tell you, you could look back on stepping on an ant and it can blow up into a tornado just on whether you think you actually intentionally stepped on an ant. So avoidance. So you may start avoiding things like the cross. You may, any sort of religious sign. You may avoid churches. You may avoid the words God or spirit or spiritual or any of that. Doing good, canceling out the bad. So if I did think, I'm staying with the ant thing. So if I did think, oh my gosh, I think I intentionally stepped on the ant and that must mean I have revenge for ants, then I need to go and do something good. So maybe I'll go volunteer tomorrow and that will cancel out the fact that I wanted to kill ants. I just want to make it clear here that I did not want to kill the ants. Or no, oh my God, I have to just ERP myself. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But I really don't think I did. And then making deals with God, and I've mentioned earlier that was a big one for me, was making the deals. In fact, in my the evening before my suicide attempt, that was my biggest thing. I was up praying and making deals with God. So yeah, I don't want to dwell on that. So when it comes to scrupulosity, why therapy can be hard, why behavior therapy can be hard, which is effective evidence-based treatment for OCD, cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure response prevention, put some ACT in there, acceptance commitment therapy, mindfulness. These are the things that you want to go for when you are living with OCD. But why can it be hard? Because it feels counterintuitive. It feels so real. It is pulling you. Like I said before, there is this urgency. You really want to solve this because we are talking about salvation. We're talking about eternal damnation, possibly. You're terrified. You need to solve it. So you're thinking, I don't want to get therapy because what if I'm wrong and this isn't OCD and I'm actually going against God? This is where it gets really stuck in the cycle. I'm too scared to get therapy because what if this really is my calling, or what if I let God down and then, I die, and then at the pearly gates or whatever, whatever happens that you believe after life, God goes, well, if you hadn't gotten therapy because you were on the right path. This is terrifying for people that are living with this. Terrifying because you don't know, and you don't have any way to, not that we have any way to figure anything out, but this is your core beliefs, and you feel like you're compromising those by getting therapy to fix what you think is doing right. And I don't mean fix like therapy fixes you. I'm just making that point of what you might be thinking. You could also be fearful that getting therapy could damage your relationship with God. It's this, oh my goodness, what if God really is communicating all this stuff to me, and I really am a bad person, and then when I get therapy, all of a sudden I don't care about God anymore, and that damages my relationship. Again, I want to go back to when it becomes unhealthy and it goes into the realm of a disorder, it's time to get some professional help, because that isn't a reflection of a healthy, loving relationship and what you want spirituality and religion to be. Torture is not a sign of a healthy relationship. It feels sinful, and I'm gonna, a little bit, and then I'll merge into this. When you are doing exposure therapy, some of the things the therapist might ask you to do are going to feel very scary. They're going to feel like, no, this is going to go against. So oftentimes people will look to the law of attraction and they'll go, I'm not doing exposures because this is putting out there that this is what I think. So no, I'm not doing it because it feels sinful. It's going against God. So a therapist might ask you to do the things that seem like it's going against what you believe. Matt Miles told me this, and I loved it. He said, when you're getting therapy, intention, and the law of attraction is about intention. So if your intent is to get better, if your intent is, I want a healthy relationship with religion, then I will do whatever is necessary to make that happen. And that is behavioral therapy. So it isn't about what's going on here in the therapy piece. The intention is, I want to get better. By not doing what is evidence-based strategies to get better, your intent is to stay sick. So what is your intention? Your intention is to have a healthy, loving relationship with your belief systems, and what you are devoted to, whether that is a God or the spirituality or whatever your devotion is. Your intention is to have a healthy relationship. So the intention is to get better. Whatever you need to do in the middle is what you have to do in the middle. If you don't, the intention is to stay sick. And that's not what we want. We want to heal and we want to get better. The bottom line, an OCD therapist and specialist is absolutely, they have the experience to be able to work within the confines and the bounds of what is going on in your mind, and the fears of whether or not you're crossing over things that feel like you're putting religion at risk. They understand this. A good OCD therapist is never going to, make you challenge things in a way where the intention isn't to have a healthy relationship. in your religion. They are there to help teach you how to get to that point. So understanding, if you are working with someone who does exposure response prevention therapy, they are trained, they are vetted, which I can help do if you need, they will know how to balance that and how to get you to that point. The last thing I want to say is that OCD attacks the things that are the most important to us. So that's why this is so hard. Our belief system, our core, who we are, which, this is reflects the values and how we interact in life. This is something that's important to all of us. And OCD is going to attack those things in a way to make you doubt. It is called the doubting disease. In a way to make you question whether it is or whether it isn't. I do want you to know that you are not alone. Scrupulosity and religious themes are so common. And I know how tough it is. I was there. And it was horrific and it was tormenting. But religion and spirituality and the core of your belief system and your morality and in your ethics, these are beautiful things. These are things that we really do value and we want to bring into the world, and we want to have a healthy relationship surrounding it. We do not want to be tormented. We want to be fulfilled. So if it has turned into something that's unhealthy, I hope that you'll take the risk and live with the uncertainty. Yes, maybe it is, maybe it's not OCD. But if you go to an OCD expert and specialist, they will help sort through all this and get you to a place where it is becoming more of a healthy relationship and something you don't have to be tortured by. Thank you for being here. I know I went a little long, but I think this is a really important and really sensitive topic. If you're in need of referrals or resources for OCD, I do consultations worldwide to help connect you to OCD experts that I vet and I will vouch for. And I also do peer support, which is using my lived experience to help normalize your symptoms as well as the emotional turmoil that comes with this illness. Go to ChrissyHodges.com, ChrissyHodges.com, or email me at ocd.chrissy@gmail.com. Thank you again, and I will see you next time.